Hi, my name is Shauna Thompson. I'm the flute professor at TCU in Fort Worth, and it's my pleasure to bring you the 2020 All-State Etudes for flute and piccolo. I grew up in Texas as part of this all-state system, so it's especially fun for me to get to do it on the other side now. So we will jump right in. The first etude this year is number 49 in F major by Karg-Elert. So I love this etude. It's very charming, and even though the tempo is quick, we don't want it to feel rushed so that it maintains its really lovely character. So there's a few exercises I recommend your students practice in preparation for this etude. So the first, of course, is an F major scale, since we're in the key of F major. I would make sure your students are practicing this with their thumb B flat fingering, and I recommend going full range. So starting on the tonic, up to a high B flat or C, down to a low C, and then back to tonic. So it would sound like this. Next, you want your students to be incorporating some double tonguing exercises into their practice every day. We have two different double tonguing patterns that come into play in this etude. The first is a slur 2 tongue 2 pattern. So just to get some extra bang for your buck, you could also practice that on an F major scale. And when I do that, I'm saying ta taka ta taka ta taka. And I want to really point out here that for the T and the K, I'm doing a ta-ka with a T-A-K-A. You could also do a tu-ku. Either one of those is really nice and forward in the mouth. It's going to keep the air moving and really facilitate the technique that we need for this etude. The tendency is going to be to say taka. We're in Texas, we like to say taka taka taka, but we really want to go for that taka 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 or tuku 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 to have the more crisp articulation. We also have a lot of slur 3 tongue 1 patterns. So I would do these ta ha ha ka ta ha ha ka ta. So we're still keeping the K and the T next to each other, again to facilitate that speed. The third exercise I would recommend practicing is working your way into some bigger intervals with slurs. You can see how this especially applies in the last line of the etude, but it's going to be really useful throughout this and the other etudes as well. You could do this starting on any note. I like to do these expanding intervals. So I'm going to start on our tonic of F, go up a half step, then a whole step, and just increase in half steps. And you could go for as far as you would like. You'll hear that I'm doing that all slurred, which is very important. And there's two key things that really have to happen to produce your best tone and best intonation here. The first is that the lips need to be able to move. So the bottom lip needs to come forward to change the angle of the air as you ascend. And the second is that the pressure needs to increase as we go up. So the abdominal muscles are going to be somewhat engaged the higher you get to really get that faster air pressure. If you're not doing those two things, the exercise will sound a little bit disconnected and choppy. here that I'm getting flatter and flatter as I ascend. So we really want to make sure that students are engaging the lips and the abdomen to get that fast air pressure. And then the last exercise I recommend practicing to go along with this etude is what I call bouncing the breath. So in this etude, we don't have many opportunities to breathe, and we definitely don't have places to take big, huge, long breaths. So we have to take smaller breaths more often. A great way to practice this is to pick any one note, and I like to do 4 short repeated notes and breathe after each set of 4. You want these breaths to be inaudible and exactly in time. So hopefully you can't really hear where I'm taking the breath and it's not interrupting the tempo of the piece at all. If you have students that this goes really well for them and they're very advanced students, you can progress this exercise to where you're breathing in between every single note. This requires a lot of control of the air and really inhaling and exhaling the same amount every time. Okay, let's dig into the actual etude a little bit more. Right away, you'll see a lot of accents in this etude. The accents should always be performed with a lot of energy and slightly separated. As flutists, we create energy with vibrato. So you'll hear that each eighth note has a lot of resonance to it. Students should also become really comfortable using the thumb B flat fingering and the 1-in-1 B flat fingering. They will have to alternate between the two throughout this etude. So one of the first things I did when I was learning this is I went through and marked which phrase I'm going to use which B flat fingering on. Take note that all of the dynamics in this etude are subito until the very last line. We've got subito fortes and subito pianos, so we don't ever want to give away the dynamics that are coming up. A great place to practice this is measure 11. So I would practice this by at first adding a rest in between each dynamic change. Then I would just make the rest half the length. And then take away the rest altogether. So that we're really accurately performing that subito dynamic throughout. Anywhere in this etude or any of the etudes that you have ornamentation, so in this etude we have quite a few mordents starting in measure 7, you want to learn the etude first without the ornamentation. This is going to ensure that your students perform the rhythm really accurately and aren't playing any wrong notes. Then once they're comfortable with that, you add in the ornamentation. Last thing I want to do is take a close look at measures 16 and 17. This is a spot again, I would learn it first without the trill. Make sure that your students are counting this accurately. This double dotted quarter note is going to feel very long after everything else they've played in the piece, so you'll want them to practice it with all of the 16th note subdivision. And then after they get the rhythm really accurate, you could add in the trill. This is a spot to make sure you're using the thumb B flat fingering so that we can get a trill from A to B flat.